We're getting ready to start Tech Talk Tuesday. I'm getting a couple things ready. I'll let you look at that for a minute. There's Nat watching. Jerry, David, Charlie. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to talk about exhaust a little bit. Chris, how's it going? Alex, Jerry, Jim, and rocker arms, and some other stuff. But I'm on the floor again in my front office. Hey, Mike. There's Jerry and Ron. Y'all load up. Let's go. We're getting ready to get into it. Tech Talk Tuesday, number 39. Monica told me today that there's 39 of these recorded. We lost 2 of them in the beginning, like number 3 and number 9. I don't know what I did with them. I thought I saved them on my phone, and then I would send it to, hey, Ron and Brian and Jim. I would send the recording on my phone. I would send it to Monica, and then she would download it on our YouTube page. And she said there's 37 of them, I think, on YouTube. No, 36. This will be the 36th one, 37th one. But anyway, this is Tech Talk Tuesday with GB3, number 39. I've done that many of them. It's hard to believe it's been that many weeks. Seems like it was just 6 weeks ago when I started this. But what I have in front of you is I have a homemade 2-in-1, a D&D Borzilla, and then a Burns in pieces there. And I'm going to break down a few of these parts. I'm going to assume that you guys can see. Hey, John and Freddie and Bobby. And this information that we've discovered, developed, learned, and made a lot of mistakes on over the years, 45 years, 40 years being in business here. I'm in my 41st year now, something like that. It's been a long time we've been doing this. But we learned a lot about the exhaust systems, and it's for Suzuki's, Kawasaki's, Yamaha, Chevrolet, Ford, Chrysler, Hemi, Harley, V-Rod. These engines, they have bore and stroke, and they have RPM, they have valves, and they're air pumps. You try to get air and fuel to go in, and you try to trap it with cam timing, and then you light it and make a big boom, and then you make the crank turn, and then the exhaust valve opens after it makes the crank turn, and then the expanded gases inside the engine escape out of the exhaust, and then if there's any left, the piston goes around and pushes the exhaust out the exhaust pipe. And you got to get all that timing right. So, hey, Gino and Mike. And the thing I wanted to tell y'all is what we have found. And I know you say, well, George has raced Suzuki's all his life. He's raced Harley's all his life. Kawasaki's. No. I've been racing engines and made a lot of mistakes on engines. We ran pro stock cars. We developed engines for pro stock cars. We did head work. We did exhaust systems for dirt cars, motocross bikes, road racing bikes. I mean, good grief. Once you start learning how to make power, lots of folks enlist you. And what happens when you get enlisted to learn and to produce and do research and development for someone, the thing that really is the greatest part is not that you just make a little money and you do some work. No. The greatest part is how much you learn. It increases the cross-section of our learning ability by working in other venues and other genres of motorsports and other engine development. So at the end of the day, when you go to bed at night and you look at all that stuff and everything you've learned, you realize that how related it is and how amazingly related all that info is to suit. And yes, of course, every engine is different. Every engine wants something different. But I have a lot of examples here. 4-strokes, single cylinders, V-twins, 4-cylinders, 6-cylinders, 10s, 12s, 8s. The more the merrier. I was trying to explain to a friend the other day that I said the only thing that makes, when you have a 4-stroke single, it has 720 degrees of rotation to do 4 strokes. It goes down to suck, then it goes up to squeeze, then it goes bang down, and then it goes blow out. So it goes suck, squeeze, bang, blow. That's the 4 strokes. And that's just a simple broken down viewpoint. But when you have 2 cylinders, you got 2 guys helping keeping the crank going. When you have 4 cylinders or 3 cylinders, you have more guys helping rotate the crank. Now that's why an 8-cylinder engine is so smooth and so fast, because there's somebody else helping. It's not just a one-man show or one person work. It's got lots of people working. Now, I'm not going to read too much of this, what I see coming across the screen here, because when I do, I go and a lot, because I'm reading and thinking what I was saying. So I'm going to try and focus on what I'm saying today. I have nothing prepared, so I'm going to, this is going to be like a stand-up at the Improv. I'm just going to, I'll put these headers out, these exhaust pipes out, and I'm hoping it generates some ideas for me to share with you guys, okay? The first pipe, the black one on top, I don't know if everybody can see it, but that is a 2-in-1 that fits an M8, and because the pipes are large, 1 3/4 inch stepped up, and I think it steps 3 times, but since that pipe is large, it actually makes pretty good power. But it has a very narrow power band because there's no length to it, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to move the camera a little bit. It's a side dump. It has a very short primary, and it has the front and rear are both very short primaries, and it has a side dump with a little muffler or a little baffle core shoved in there. So it does drop off some exhaust and get some exhaust out, but it has a very narrow power band, whereas the chrome 2-in-1 is the D&D Borzilla, which is my favorite because it has the combination of the big pipes. It starts at 1 7/8 and it steps twice, and it has a really nice collector. And if you'll look, it's about, well, please forgive me for flopping around. It looks like it's almost a foot longer, maybe 10 to 12 inches longer from where the collector starts to the collector. So this gives us a whole bunch wider power band, and then it has a muffler you can see through. It's an open core, and it's really long. So the total pipe length is the longest we use. And what we found with the Harleys is they like long, big pipes. Now this next one, the lower pipe, is a really big Burns that we had custom made by Burns for us. It's 1 size bigger pipes than normal they make. All right, so 2-in-1, and it has a really, really big 2-in-1 muffler collector. Super high quality, done really nice, finished nice, and it has a big muffler core. It's loud, but it's better than straight open pipes like I had on Bagzilla. Now, this also has a narrow power band, because the reason I say that, because it's really big and really short. And the important thing about the differences here that I want to share with you guys on the engines, and this is going to be an important statement that I think is important, and it's this one will say, once the exhaust system is full, no more intake will go in the engine. Now, if you spray it with nitrous or put a supercharger or a turbo, once the exhaust system's full, we continue to overstuff it. And when we overstuff the engine with more nitrous, more boost, supercharger, nitrous, turbo, or whatever the power adder is, we put more than the engine can put in by itself. That's a power adder. Well, let me tell you about the exhaust system on power adders. The pressure in the exhaust system goes straight up. So when you run a normally aspirated engine and you develop the perfect exhaust system for the normally aspirated engine to where you can make the most horsepower per cubic inch, and then you spray it with nitrous, either the exhaust system was too big already or too little already or just right. That's just the fact. So when it was exactly the right size to make the power curve that you wanted, and then you put a 50 shot or a 60 shot of nitrous on it, if you had a pressure gauge in the exhaust pipe, it would show the exhaust pressure would go way up because the pipe isn't big enough. And no more power will go through the engine when the exhaust system fills up unless you stuff it with boost or nitrous, turbo supercharger. So when you stuff more air in, then the pressure goes up in the exhaust. Now, I hear people talking about you need back pressure and you need back pressure. I don't need back pressure. I need that stuff to get out. I like it to get out fast, and I like for it to get out on time. So cam timing is really, really important. When you say back pressure, what you've really got going on is something I don't know anything about, but I believe that it's sound waves. The reflection wave goes to the end of the pipe and turns around and comes back. And you want that to be tuned correctly. That's why the length is so important and the sizes are so important. But I don't know an engine that needs back pressure. Yeah, so you got some side dump pipes that work good on your bike. You got some 2-in-1s made by other companies, brand X and brand V and brand Z and brand B and all those other brands. They work. They work on your bike and you're happy with them. That's great. But these are not the best pipes in the world, okay? These are just the examples I had in the shop. I had this homemade 2-in-1 that fits on an M8. I had this Borzilla brand new in the box I unboxed today. And then this new Burns piece that's really nice that Burns made custom for us for an M8. It's the biggest M8 pipe we've seen yet. And what we learned was, as we go and as we test, you've got to pick out where you want your power peak at. Do you want it at 6,000, 7,000, 3,000, 2,000? You better build a pipe to suit, just like you better get a cam to suit. Now, back in the day when we raced 4-cylinders, and they had independent runners, and we had, look at the oil came out of that rock arm. Can you see the screen? Yep. So we had our 4-cylinder engine, that's the cylinder, and the crankcase, and the transmission, and we had big carburetors on it, okay, and then we had the header, and we had 4 pipes going in the header, and we had this collector, 4-in-1, and then we had a megaphone, all right? So everybody got my picture? Okay, and it's got a big, no, there it is. Okay, so when we had the exhaust, we'd run this engine, say 10,000, 11,000, 12,000, 13,000, 14,000 RPM, when it would fill up, when this exhaust system would fill up, it would fill up in here, and it would start backing up, and then it would back up through the head, and then it would come right out of the carburetors, and it made a fog back here that you couldn't see going down the racetrack, but on the dyno you could see it. And what that's standoff. And what I saw was when it went to peak torque, when that engine made the most powerful, most torque at whatever RPM, once you went past that RPM, then it started backing up and coming out. So what we learned was once the exhaust system fills up, no more will go in. Yes, we continue to rev it up. Yes, we turn it more RPM, and yes, it goes rich here, you guys, especially with these carburetors. These were carburetors. These were not fuel injection, okay? So this air would go in, and it would pull fuel. This air would go back out, and it would pull fuel. This air would go in, it would pull fuel. So we had so much fuel going on here, our air-fuel ratio, going down the track, the higher we revved it, the air-fuel would go like this. This would be low RPM, it would be, say, 14-to-1, and halfway through the gear it would be 13-to-1, and by the time you shift it'd be 12-to-1. It was adding so much fuel. The higher you revved it, the more it started carbureting twice. Air and fuel, the air would go through the carburetor both ways. It was blowing in, blowing out, blowing in, blowing out, and it didn't happen. There was no standoff here until the exhaust system filled up. And guess what? That's news. That's something that's, even my old car buddies and stuff, they don't really get to run independent runners, and they didn't get to see standoff very much because most car guys use a plenum and carburetors on a plenum, so the plenum would absorb the standoff. It would be full in there. There would be a hurricane of air and fuel in that plenum, and each cylinder would pull on the plenum, and as the RPM went up on the pro stock car engines and the competition eliminator engines, as the RPM went up, the air-fuel mixture got richer and richer and richer because there was standoff in the tunnel ram or in the plenum, and it would just get richer and richer, and the engine would suffer for it. So EFI came out, woo! And when EFI came out, we didn't really go faster. We didn't really make more power, but man, we could make more power in more places. What was really cool when we got the EFI was down low where a carburetor was big and it was doing this. It was slow and the fuel wouldn't come out. It would have these these bogging RPM. So we put accelerator pumps and and we would put power jets, and we'd put extra jets, and we would try to get all that stuff to carburate well so that it would run at different RPM. Now with the EFI, we can just spray the injector when we want it to come on. We can spray the injector less, we can spray it more, depending on our RPM and our throttle position. Get a swig of water. Now, going back to these exhaust systems, well, let's look at a power curve. When you get a exhaust pipe on your Harley and it's not tuned up, oh no, let's say the Rusty at D&D and the guys at D&D do a good job. I'm not doing a commercial for D&D. I buy a lot of their exhaust. They sell a lot of exhaust because we tell people, and also the world knows, that they're a great pipe. The fit and finish is really nice, and the design is so good because Rusty works on power curves so it looks like this. When you ride a Harley that has a power curve like that, it is fun, it is seamless. You and I have seen the ones on the dyno curves and the power curves on the internet, and they look like this. Those are pipes that are either duals or too short or side dump because it's hard to tune here in this RPM range because the pipe is either too small, and it doesn't have this advantage that the D&D has with all this length. I'll stop for a minute and tell y'all that this is my opinion because there's a lot of great exhaust systems. There's a lot of great engine builders out there. There's a lot of tuners out there. There's a lot of people that know what they're doing. That's what they do for a living, and they're really good at it. They make a good living, and they make a lot of motorcycles and engines go fast. So I'm not competing for that or against that. That's all good. This is my tech talk that I've been given the opportunity here to take a gift that the good Lord gave me to gather this knowledge, experience these things, and try and turn them into words that I think I'm right about or I think I know about. I wouldn't bet your life on it if this is all true or I know what I'm saying, but this is my experience and I'm sharing it. And if you guys watch this often or every week, you may learn that I'm sharing what I think I know. Now, I'm going to spend a minute on this rocker arm ratio before we run out of time. There's two rocker arms. I'm going to drop this little stand down so we can get a better view. A lot of guys have M8s, twin cams, and they know what these look like. But some people don't know what these look like. But this is the standard twin cam rocker arm. What a horrible looking thing. S&S makes this as a better version of the stock one. It has a roller tip. This is a 1.62 to 1 rocker ratio, and I wanted to explain what that means. A 1.62 to 1 rocker ratio means that from the fulcrum point, whatever the distance is from the fulcrum to where it actuates the valve, divided by push rod to fulcrum. If this is, let's say 1.5 inches and this is 1 inch, that would be a 1.5 to 1, a 1.5 to 1 rocker ratio. A lot of Chevrolets and Fords and Chryslers and stuff, they all come with 1.5s, 1.6, 1.7s, 1.8s. You've even heard of 2 to 1. So let me tell you about a 2 to 1 rocker like we use in the Pro Stock engines, for instance. It would have a fulcrum of, say, it would have an inch here, and it would have 2 inches here. Boy, you talking about putting some pressure on something. If you're going to lift a big old spring, 1 inch here, with a big spring, and you're going to do it with a push rod over here, and it's got a 2 to 1 ratio, this little part right here is working hard, this push rod's working hard, and this adds how much ever pressure this spring is. If it's a 2 to 1 rocker ratio, 2 to 1, and this is 1,000 pounds open, this is 2,000 pounds of pressure over here on the push rod. That's why we don't like spindly, thin wall, lightweight push rods, because they bend and they act like javelins in the, they bend and react. They're like a spring. My buddy Joe Hornick was explaining to me one time about the rocker arm, and the push rod was like a spring. It would bend and react. Now here's a very unusual looking little duct. This is the M8 rocker arm. It's exactly the same ratio. Try and get them in the camera. 1.65 to 1. This is almost identical right here. But over here, there's another valve. So this little unit, push rod comes up here. If it lifts up a ½ inch here, it lifts 1.62 times more over on both valves. It is kind of spindly. It has some finite element analysis into it. This one arm here is kind of slim and trim, and this one's a little bit fatter and thicker, more cross section. And I think of this as a torsion bar, because at some RPM and some speed, this unit's going to twist. So when people are so particular about getting the valve lengths right and the install height right and all the clearances and lash right, what happens when this thing starts winding up and unwinding and winding up and unwinding? And don't think it doesn't. This unit here would wind up and unwind just like a torsion bar. This rocker arm right here is a torsion bar. This thing here will wind up and unwind. Now, as a special treat to talk about some of the things we learned about on going back to the exhaust, I'm kind of skipping around here, but that's all right. I didn't make a plan. I'm just going to talk. Here is a 4-in-1 pipe off a Pro Stock car. Okay, Pro Stock car is 500 cubic inches. That makes it, I think it's got 4 124 engines in it. Like the S&S 124, there's 4 of them in there. I think it's 124, 124, 248, 396, yeah, 496. Yeah, so the bore and stroke is big bore, short stroke. And this pipe is big too. This is a 10,000, 11,000 RPM 124. Here's one 124. And when the engine's a V8 like that, it runs like a V-twin, right? So you get a pipe from the left bank of the engine and a pipe from the right bank of the engine. And the sizes and the lengths are so important. These guys, they want a really narrow power band. They want to run their engine from 9,500 to 10.5, or they want to run them 10,000, 11,000 RPMs, whatever the rev limiter is now. I can't remember. But back in the day, before they came out with the rev limiter rule and the fuel injection, they were turning them almost 12,000, over 12,000 RPM. But they have a very narrow power band. So these short pipes suit that, but they're also really big. These are big pipes for a 124. Most motorcycles, Harley guys, don't run pipes that big. They don't run that much RPM either. But when the exhaust system's full, no more air will go in, is an opinion of mine. So I think that's really important. Now I'm going to move that out of the way, and I'm going to slide over here to the S&S 160 exhaust pipe. Here's an exhaust pipe off of an S&S 160 Pro Stock engine. Okay. This pipe, you can't hardly tell it on my phone camera, but this is 2 3/4 inches. Right here, 2 3/4 inches. And then it steps up, and then out here at the end is 3 inches in diameter. 3 inches. All right, this pipe right here is for 180 cubic inch engine. It's a 160 cubic inch Pro Stock V-twin, and this is for 1 cylinder, okay? Now, if it was a V8, what would that be? Yes, what would that be for an engine? 160, 320, 640. That'd be a 640 V8. That'd be a 640 V8 with a 5 1/8 bore and a 3.8 stroke, and it would turn 10.5, 11,000 RPM, and it would have a 2.7 or 2.8 intake valve, and it would have a 2.1 exhaust valve, and it would use a 3-inch exhaust pipe or a at the head, it would use a 2 3/4 exhaust pipe per cylinder to have a 10,000 RPM 640. So given those ideas, and this is what's really amazing about this pipe and that engine. We ground this smooth and we put this silicone on it, and it was straight pipe, y'all. I had it held on with some springs, and this slips onto this spigot. And when you'd be running this on the dyno at 10,000 RPM, you could see the springs stretching and the pipes trying to come off of the flange. And also, it would leak here. I mean, how would it have enough pressure in this 3-inch pipe? A 3-inch pipe. And it would blow the pipe off of the flange, the springs would stretch, and it would leak around here. There's some serious pressure going on in here. I just thought that was interesting and worth sharing. But there's a lot of cool stuff going on in the way the exhaust works with it. And our opinions have changed over the years, because back in the day, we were working on overlap. We were working on, Ed Iskandarian called it the 5th cycle, which was the overlap cycle. And back in the day, we ran, on Pro Stock cars, we ran 80 degrees overlap, where the intake valve was open and the exhaust valve were open at the same time, a full 80 degrees. That's a long time. And nowadays, with our race, really high-end race engines now, we're running a lot less overlap. Some of them, our really fast Harleys are only running 40 or 50 degrees overlap. Some Pro Stock cars are running 50 degrees overlap. That's a big difference. So we found out that that may have been a cycle that was interesting back in 1955 or 65, called the overlap stroke. But now when you're turning 4,000 RPM, 5,000 RPM, back in the day, that might have been something that you would tune for. Tune the overlap, and they called it scavenge in the exhaust. One cylinder would scavenge another one. But these really fast V-twins that have straight pipes on them, there's not much scavenging going on, because it's one pipe 3 inches in diameter blowing in the air. At the pressure, you would not believe, you guys. Listen, I told you it was so much pressure it would leak out between the head and the flange. I mean, if you're standing behind the motorcycle when they would take off, it would literally blow your hat off. The pressure coming out of the exhaust pipe is unbelievable. And it would try and blow the pipes off. I had a guy that races a Pro Stock motorcycle with one of those big 160s. He told me that on his dyno one time, it blew the pipe off, and it made more power and gained RPM when the pipe blew off, because it's a restriction. And a long time ago, man, we used to talk about we need back pressure, we need scavenge, and we need this and that. And there was tuning going on, but I think we misunderstood it. And there's some great math. This finishes off with the math. I watched last night and today, so many people talking about, just do the math. There's a math formula for that. There's a math formula for this. And the more you learn and the more things you discover, you put a math formula to it, so you have a benchmark or a go-back point. But please understand that the math, they say, math never changes. Well, the formula changes, because, if you add 2 and 2 together and you get 4, that's going to be great until 4 ain't enough. And then if you want 6 or 8, you're going to have to do more than 2 plus 2, even though the 2 plus 2 still equals 4. But 4, that might be enough to get you qualified 20 years ago, but not anymore. So anyway, that's a little bit off topic, but I see I'm just about run out of time. I wanted to give you an update on how things are here at Star Racing Power. We're under full quarantine. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on around with all these rules and regulations and what we ought to do and what we shouldn't do. But where we live right here in southwest Georgia, there's a lot of people getting sick, a lot of deaths, and they're still working so hard in the hospitals and the front line. The people on the front line and the first responders and stuff, they're really catching the dickens. And my friend Justin Collier, he made these really neat ear savers that you wear the mask and you put the rubber band behind your ears, and he made this little piece that you can use and hook the rubber band to each one. It goes around behind your neck. And I went around and gave them out to some friends, and he sent some to lots of hospitals and frontline personnel that their ears are getting raw from these rubber bands rubbing on their ears. And I'm telling you, these people are wearing masks, and they're not wearing masks only not to get sick, but they're in contact with a sick person that has the virus, okay, or they have some sickness, And these people are working in the hospital and with these sick people, and they don't want to give it to the next person that's not sick. They don't want to take it home and give it to their mom or their dad or their parents or their husband or their children. That's what it's all about. It's not so you don't get it, it's so we don't give it. And yes, I'm all for let's open up, let's go back to business, let's everybody get out there. There's going to be more problems from a bad economy than from a bad virus. I think all that's true. And what a balance point that our leadership is having to deal with on when to open and when to close and when to, when everything needs to happen. So if there was a really smart person that could answer all that, that would be beautiful. But I just pray for them. God bless them for making decisions, and we do the best. You know who's doing a good job? Y'all, we are doing a good job. We are doing a good job. You, me, us, trying to keep from spreading it, standing a little further apart, not shaking hands and hugging and kissing and drinking out of the same bottle. I mean, yes, your loved ones and the ones in your family, we're all trying to take care of each other and take care of ourselves there. But Jackie Bryce, my wife, been my partner here for 40 years. She is the primary caregiver for her mother and her father. They're 90 years old this year, and they are both like magnets for any virus, not just a COVID-19, but any virus. So she's being extra careful. She said that she's getting 2 weeks to a mile on her gas and in her little RV there. I mean, her SUV, her RV. But anyway, it's good stuff here that we're all sharing and keeping all this information out there. And I'm blessed to be able to take this info and share it with you guys. And I hope this creates a lot of conversation. I hope you guys give me emails and text me, private message me, send me info, what you want to learn more about. I'm fired up about it. I'm passionate about this, and I want to share it. And I want to go fast, and I want to make some horsepower. And every time you guys give me a job or give me an opportunity, we get to learn more and go fast. I learn every day. I just wanted to say thank y'all so much for watching. Keep the spread so we can grow. Keep the spread from spreading and so we can grow. God bless y'all. Amen. Have a good night. See you soon at the racetrack, I promise.